let's go ahead and react to Pat McAfee's show. Lombardi talking about the situation we're in right now, where we have Trey Hendrickson, who wants a contract extension. Then you also want T. Higgins, who wants a new contract. Jamar Chase needs a new contract. Everyone needs to get paid. And there's only so much money to go around. And I've given my thoughts and opinions, so let's listen up to Lombardi, and then let's go ahead and I'll give my thoughts and opinions afterwards. So let me go ahead and play this audio from the Pat McAfee show.
Are at multiple positions around the league. The exact one was we can't have guys at the top of the payroll in every position, right? How do you think they go about assembling their team, and how do teams not fall into this kind of category like the Cowboys are in now and seemingly the Bengals are in, where you're paying three guys, 50% of your cap, but you kind of have to hold on to those guys because of how productive they are?
Yeah, well, you want to hold on to them. You just got to draft really well. I mean, the Rams got away with it. I know I listened to what Les said before I came on, and Les has done a great job of rebuilding that defensive front with the draft. And to me, if you're Duke Tobin, you've got to say, I've got to sign Hendrickson. He's my best pass rusher. He gives me a presence on defense. I love to sign T. Higgins, but unless I can get T for the right deal, I'm going to have to draft somebody. I'm going to have to find, again, it's the same thing whether you're in pro football or college football. They're replaceable parts and they're non-replaceable parts. And I think when you're talking about a great pass rusher like Hendrickson, they're hard to find. They just don't come walking down the street. You got to pay him. And you're going to have to pay him. You can never overpay for great, but what happens is when you start overpaying for good, you get in trouble. And I think that's something that Cincinnati can't do. Look, the offensive line has been a mess. Their defense hasn't been very good because of the way they practice and because of the way they don't really demand physicality. Look, the reality of it is teams that can't run the ball don't play good run defense. I mean, that's just a fact. Look, the Rams, one of the areas they have to improve on is their running game. They were 31st in the National Football League in yards per attempt. And guess what? Their defense was 26th in allowing yards per attempt. Those two things have to go together. And Cincy never puts those two together. I think it's one of the hardest defensive coordinator jobs in football because of the way they approach offensive football in Cincinnati. They never run it. They really don't manage the game correctly. They just want to score. And all of a sudden, they're in a scoring duel, and they end up losing. So Duke's got a challenge, but he's going to have to draft really well.
Okay, so
Number one, draft. And that's something that Duke has been horrific at, is hitting in the draft. You got to build your team through the draft. I've been saying it in many videos, and it's honestly the God's honest truth. You cannot be successful in this league if you cannot hit on your draft picks. Yes, free agency is great, but free agency is usually like one or two players you need to fill a position. Maybe there's a really good guy out there that you want to pick up, but it can't be you go into free agency and pick up 15, 20 guys. Patriots did that a couple years ago, actually, and yeah, freaking flopped. But that's not how you build your team. You have to build your team through the draft in day 2 and day 3 picks. So anywhere from the 3rd round to all the way to the 7th round. You have to get quality backups. You have to get guys that you develop into really good rotational guys. Some guys you develop into starters. And that's how you have to fill your roster because of how much players cost. Free agency, you're going to be running the tab going in free agency and trying to get all these players. Offensive linemen in free agency, they cost 250% more than they normally would if you were trying to re-sign them. Because all the teams are bidding against each other to try to get this one guy. If, you say, hey, I'll offer you this, and you're trying to get a good deal with a lineman, well, guess what? There's probably 10 other teams, if the guy's good enough, that are also interested in that guy. So it just runs up the bill. Across the board, the second thing I will agree with, what's his name? Lombardi here, Michael Lombardi, is the fact that, yeah, we aren't well coached. And that has been a problem for us the last couple years. Zach Taylor is not a good offensive coordinator. He's not. He's absolutely horrific. He's a great leader. He's a great guy. He's great. He knows what the heck he's doing when it comes to leading. I'm trying to figure out some more successful words to give him, but he's a great person, okay? But he's not a good offensive coordinator. He's not good at calling plays in the clutch. He's not good at time management. He's not good at utilizing his timeouts and the challenges. He's not good at that stuff. And we have lost games this year, and we would have been in the playoffs if it wasn't for those situations. Now, I'm not saying it's all on Zach. It's not. But there is a majority of the blame that does go to Zach. Our coaching staff in general. I mean, we let Frank Pollock be our offensive line coach for way too long before we moved on from him. And we clearly are not putting the time and effort into the offensive line, no matter how many years we go past with Joe Burrow at quarterback. So I agree with Lombardi here that, yeah, we have a big problem. But the thing is, if you really want to fix the problem, as I said many times this offseason, you got to clean house. You gotta fire Duke Tobin. You got to get someone in here who knows how to draft, who's successful at drafting, and can also bring in some pretty good people that can get this whole operation moving forward. Again, I've always say this, and I'll say it a million times. I think you should promote Zach Taylor to a advisor role, like kind of like Pete Carroll did with the Seahawks, because I think overall wise, Zach Taylor is still a great leader. He might not be the best when it comes to decision making, but he is a great leader. So I think you should definitely keep him around for that reason. But I think you fire Duke, you get an actual GM in here, you figure that situation out. You're going to get better drafting out of that because clearly Duke does not work out with the drafting. But again, then you're going through the whole mindset of Mike Brown, and will Mike Brown actually get a real GM because Duke Tobin is not really a GM and he costs less. It's a forever back and forth mess that I don't know if they'll ever fix. I'll be honest with you. To his last point about our philosophy, I think our philosophy was the last couple years definitely has been kind of like an air raid offense. Just score. Who cares? Whatever happens, just score as many points as possible. Because we lack actual, I would say discipline, but we lack actual system and structure because Zach is our coach. And again, I just don't think he's the best at that. That's really where I will say we lack that. So our system is just try to do anything possible to get in the end zone and hope it works out and hope we win. That's kind of been our philosophy. Now, this is why many coaches will outcoach us. I mean, you look at the games we play, even the worst teams, they outcoach us. Even if we win the game, they outcoach us. And that's been really our biggest issue and problem throughout the year. Years actually, has been we just can't outcoach anybody. And to Lombardi's point, that's a lot of the reason why we can't outcoach people, because we don't really know what the hell we're doing. We're just kind of throwing poop at the wall and hoping it sticks. And the thing is, we have really great players on this roster that can get us to that point where the stick happens, and more often than not, it will actually stick. But we don't have the point to make it stick permanently over the time period. So it's a forever back and forth issue, which again, hey, maybe eventually, if we did fire Duke Tobin, get an actual GM in here, promote Zach Taylor, get a different coach, things would go in a different direction, but I just don't think it will. I think right now we're kind of in this, endless limbo. Insanity is just doing the same thing on repeat and expecting different results. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're kind of in that insanity window. But it is what it is. I am hopeful that this offseason we have made some actual changes that I like. We have gotten some new coaches with obviously Al Golden and our positional coaches as well. So I think there is a level of discipline, a level of structure that Al Golden brings to this defense that I really am looking forward to seeing. I'm hopeful moving forward that our defense will be a lot better. But As I've said many times, if you really want to fix the problem, you have to cut the head off the snake here, right? You know, you can go down and let's say, for example, you have a termite infestation in your house. If you kill one nest in your house, right? One nest in your kitchen, okay? It's not fixing the problem. You still have nests everywhere. What you can't see is the biggest issue with termites. And what you can't see right now with the Bengals is the biggest issue is not just one positional coach, two positional coaches, defensive coordinator. If anything, I think if you would have went top down here and you would have fired Duke, you would have promoted Zach, got a new DM, got a new head coach, and then you went through the process of saying, okay, you know, what's next? I don't think you get rid of Lou Anarumo. I think if you do this last offseason, you get rid of those guys. I think Lou is still on this team, and I think our defense is very successful. So I think that's definitely another factor. But, I mean, we're playing right now what ifs, right? We're playing the forever game of what if, what if, what if. And at the end of the day, the answer to that question is, well, we'll have to wait and find out, you know? Only time will tell. So it's definitely an interesting situation. Shout out to Lombardi for giving his thoughts and opinions. Shout out to Pat McAfee show, but it is what it is. Who day, boys? Who day?